Have you ever felt just entirely stuck in your career?
Oh, yeah. You're just hitting a wall.
Right. So you decide to do what literally everyone, every life coach, every career blog out there tells you to do.
Which is usually to look inward.
Exactly. You sit down on a Sunday morning, you've got a blank journal.
A fresh cup of coffee.
Yeah, the fresh copy is mandatory. And you sit there and try to figure out your quote-unquote true passion. You really try to do the deep introspection thing.
And let me guess.
Yep. An hour later, you end up walking away feeling like even more paralyzed, more confused, and honestly, a little worse about yourself than before you sat down.
It is such a frustrating trap, right? Because we are universally conditioned to believe that the answer to our professional dissatisfaction is locked somewhere inside our own heads.
Like it's just hiding in there.
Exactly. We treat our brains like a locked safe. We assume that if we just think hard enough, we'll eventually crack the combination and boom, our ultimate purpose will just pop out.
Well, today we are exploring why that very act of introspection, the exact thing you're supposed to do, is, well, is exactly what's keeping you stuck.
It's completely counterintuitive.
It really is. Welcome to this deep dive on the Better Every Page YouTube channel. Today we're unpacking a massive paradigm shift. We're taking the universally accepted advice to look inward to find a new career, and we're going to flip it completely on its head.
It's a radical departure from the norm. And to guide us through why this is so incredibly necessary, we're looking at the foundational concepts from Herminia Ibarra's book.
Working identity.
Right, Working Identity, Unconventional Strategies for Reinventing Your Career.
And we should probably establish right up front that Ibarra isn't just throwing out fluffy, self-help platitudes here.
Definitely not. She holds a PhD from Yale.
Yeah, she's a renowned organizational behavior expert at INSEAD, which is like one of the top business schools in the entire world. Her work is heavily grounded in deep empirical research.
And real-world case studies, yeah. Which is why understanding the timing of her research adds such a crucial layer for anyone listening today.
Because it wasn't written yesterday.
No, she published this research right after the dot-com bubble burst.
Oh, wow. So right when everything was kind of falling apart.
Exactly. That was the specific cultural moment when the long-standing, comforting illusion of lifetime employment, staying with a single paternalistic company forever, when that finally shattered.
We were suddenly seeing the birth of increased job mobility.
Right. And the stark realization that career paths, they just weren't going to be linear anymore.
And even though that was a couple of decades ago, I mean, it feels incredibly urgent for you listening right now.
Oh, completely.
Between navigating the gig economy, the massive AI disruptions that are threatening to automate entire industries.
It's wild out there.
It is. And job markets that just feel more unpredictable by the day. That anxiety she identified back then, that's like just our baseline Tuesday now.
Yeah, the macroeconomic environment has absolutely accelerated the trends she was studying.
It's not just a midlife crisis thing anymore.
No, not at all. The need to adapt and redefine your professional identity, it isn't some luxury. It's a fundamental, everyday survival skill.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if introspection isn't the answer to figuring out what we want to do with our lives, what is? Ibarra has this central thesis that essentially underpins everything she teaches. And honestly, it sounds almost backward the first time you hear it.
It does. It really does. Her absolute foundation can be summarized in one phrase.
Let's hear it.
Act your way into a new way of thinking.
Act your way into a new way of thinking, rather than thinking your way into a new way of acting.
That's the pivot. The core mechanical flaw with introspection is that you cannot think your way into a new identity because, well, you simply do not possess the data yet.
The data.
Think about it. Introspection relies entirely on querying your existing database.
Your past experiences.
Right, your old skills, your current emotional state. If you are trying to become something you have never been, your brain literally has no raw material to work with.
So you're searching an empty filing cabinet.
Exactly. You open the drawer, and there's nothing there.
It makes so much sense when you frame it as a data deficiency. It's like trying to learn how to swim by sitting on your couch and reading a textbook on fluid dynamics.
Yes, that is a perfect analogy.
Like you can memorize all the physics of water displacement, you can visualize the perfect breaststroke.
But the second you jump into the deep end,
you are going to panic.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't figure it out on the couch. You have to actually get in the water and feel how your body moves against the current.
You need the sensory and emotional feedback of the water. And in a career context, you need the feedback of the actual work.
So how do we get that?
You have to craft experiments. Ibarra advocates for what she calls low-risk experiments.
Okay, low risk.
Right. This is about getting in the water, but it's not about doing a swan dive off a 70-foot cliff.
Thank goodness.
It's not about dramatic burn the boats life changes where you just quit your job on a Tuesday.
Which is a huge relief, honestly. But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
How do we actually do that without burning out? I mean, if you're listening to this, you might be working 40 to 50 hours a week. You've got a family, maybe you've got a mortgage.
Oh, yeah, the real world constraints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you just start experimenting on the side without looking completely flaky to your current employer or just totally exhausting yourself?
That is the most common and honestly the most valid constraint people face. But the secret lies entirely in the scale of the experiment.
The scale.
Yeah. An experiment could be taking a short weekend course.
Okay.
It could be volunteering to manage one tiny project outside your normal scope at your current job. Or it could just be shadowing a friend at their startup for like 3 hours on a Saturday.
So it's not a second job.
No, the goal isn't to hold down 2 full-time jobs. The goal is simply to gather real-world data about a new environment.
To see if you actually like it.
Exactly. Do you actually enjoy the daily, unglamorous grind of this new field? Or did you just fall in love with the idea of it?
Right. Because the idea of, opening a quaint little bakery sounds incredibly romantic.
Until you run the experiment.
Right. Until you realize you actually have to wake up at 3 a.m. every single day to knead dough in a freezing kitchen.
Yes, that's the data you're missing on the couch.
But beyond just testing the physical tasks, you also have to deal with the people in these new environments. And Ibarra points out that our current social circles are actually a huge hurdle in this process.
They really are, and it's tough to hear. But when you're trying to change your career, your current network, your colleagues, your industry friends, even your family, they inadvertently act as an anchor.
An anchor.
Yeah. They know you as the person you are right now. Every time you interact with them, they reinforce your old identity because that is the only way they know how to relate to you.
Wait, hold on. That sounds incredibly harsh.
I know.
Are you saying I have to ditch my work friends or cut people out of my life just because I want to change careers? Because that feels a bit ruthless.
No, not at all. And it's really important to clarify that. It isn't some malicious conspiracy by your friends to keep you down.
Okay.
It's just human nature. They expect you to be the accountant or the marketing manager or whatever label they've grown comfortable with.
Right, that's they see you.
But to shift your identity, you have to intentionally shift your connections. You don't ditch your old friends. You expand into new spheres.
You add to your network.
Exactly. You have
Wow.
to start spending time with people who inhabit the world you want to enter because those new connections provide a fresh mirror.
Oh, I like that. A fresh mirror.
They see you for who you are becoming, not who you have always been.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's about finding a community that speaks the language of your future, not your past. And this ties into a really profound concept Ibarra explores, which she calls the many selves.
Yes. And this is where she dismantles another massive cultural myth. We have this highly romanticized notion that each of us has one singular true self waiting to be uncovered.
Like we're just waiting for destiny.
Right. Like there is one ultimate destination, one perfect soulmate career that we are all supposedly hiking toward.
And if you haven't found it, you're somehow failing at life.
Which is an exhausting way to live.
It really is.
Ibarra argues that we actually have many potential professional identities.
Many selves.
Exactly. We have multiple selves that could be deeply fulfilled in entirely different career paths.
Oh, I could be happy doing a bunch of different things.
Yes. You could be equally happy as a landscape architect, a high school teacher, or a supply chain analyst.
But that takes so much pressure off.
It does. By exploring these different selves through small, low-risk experiments, you're just testing out which version of yourself feels most vital right now.
But testing out a new version of yourself also means you eventually have to let go of the old version. And from my own experience and from what we see in the sources, that is exactly where people hit a brick wall.
What's fascinating here is the psychological barrier of releasing outdated self-conceptions.
It's hard to let go.
It's incredibly hard. Leaving behind an old role isn't just a simple matter of updating your LinkedIn headline. It's an emotional severing.
Almost like a breakup.
It is. There is a very real grieving process for the identity you built, the status you achieved, and the comfort of waking up every day and knowing exactly what you were doing.
It's essentially the sunk cost fallacy applied to our very identity. You think, I spent 8 years getting my law degree and making partner. I can't just walk away and be a beginner again.
And that hesitation throws you into what psychologists call a liminal space.
A liminal space.
Yeah, it is a nonlinear, often deeply frustrating period that requires immense patience. You'll have 2 days of intense clarity followed by 3 weeks of absolute crippling doubt.
Let's ground that term liminal space because it sounds a bit academic.
Sure.
I like to think of it as that terrifying, dimly lit hallway between two closed doors.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Right. You've walked out of the room where you saw yourself as a lawyer, and that door clicks shut behind you.
But you haven't opened the next one.
Exactly. You haven't yet opened the door to the room where you're a writer or whatever is next. You were just floating in the hallway.
Stuck in the middle.
Right. Nobody sees you as your old label, but they don't see you as your new label yet either. You are literally undefined. And that feeling of free fall is usually the exact moment people panic, turn around, and run back to their old, miserable jobs just to have a label again.
That hallway metaphor captures the terror perfectly. And that brings us to a deeper philosophical point under all of this.
Okay.
We've been talking about the mechanics of changing jobs, but what Ibarra is really exploring is the fluidity of human identity itself.
The fluidity.
Yes. She uses this wonderful motif of identity play.
Identity play.
In our culture, we tend to treat professional identity as a static endpoint. You graduate, you become a lawyer, you are a lawyer. End of story.
Right, you're locked in.
But identity play suggests that your professional self is a malleable entity. It's an ongoing negotiation between who you are changing into and what the world needs from you at any given moment.
This makes me think of other famous career guides. Like, I'm sure most people listening have heard of Richard N. Bola's massive bestseller, What Color is Your Parachute?
Oh, of course, a classic.
That book is practically the Bible for career changers. How does Ibarra's philosophy stack up against that traditional approach?
It's a great comparison because they serve completely different yet complementary purposes.
How so?
Well, What Color is Your Parachute is an exceptional resource, but it is highly focused on the mechanics of the job hunt.
Like resumes and interviews.
Exactly. It's about skills acquisition, resume building, interview techniques, and matching your existing skills to current market needs.
Okay, very practical.
Very. But Ibarra is operating on a much deeper psychological layer. She is focused on the emotional metamorphosis of who you are becoming.
So Bowles helps you find a job.
And Ibarra helps you navigate the internal transformation required to actually inhabit a new life without losing your mind in that liminal hallway.
Man, if we look at the world today, the ability to undergo that internal metamorphosis seems infinitely more important than just having a sharp resume.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what Ibarra is detailing is a globally relevant survival skill.
A survival skill.
Truly. We are living in a world in constant flux. The ability to fluidly transition, to reinvent yourself without suffering a total existential crisis every 5 years.
Which happens to a lot of us.
Right. But that ability is how you find enduring purpose. If your identity is rigid, you will break when the market changes. If your identity is fluid, you can adapt to whatever comes next.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we need to translate these deep philosophical themes into Monday morning action steps.
Let's do it.
How does someone listening to this right now actually start doing this identity play? The sources give us 3 core exercises. Let's break them down mechanically so people can actually use them. What's the first one?
The first is identity mapping.
Identity mapping. Okay.
This is a visual exercise, but it's not just making a list of jobs you might like. You map out your skills, your interests, and your core values, and then you break them down to their absolute base elements.
To see how they recombine.
Exactly, to see how they might recombine into entirely new paths.
Okay, let's actually do one. Let's say you're a frustrated corporate sales manager.
Okay, perfect.
You don't just write sales on a whiteboard and stare at it. You have to break the job down to its atoms.
Right.
You might say, okay, my atoms are, I'm really good at reading body language. I thrive in fast-paced negotiations, but I absolutely hate doing expense reports and managing quotas.
That's a very common mix.
So how do those specific atoms recombine into a totally different molecule?
Yeah.
Suddenly, you aren't looking at sales director roles anymore.
What are you looking at?
You're looking at those atoms and realizing you might be perfectly suited for, say, crisis PR or high-stakes mediation.
That's brilliant.
Those same base blocks can build a completely different house.
That is exactly how the mapping works. It liberates you from the title you currently hold. And once you have a new direction, you move to the second exercise.
which is
narrative development.
narrative development.
This is about crafting new stories regarding your past experiences. We all have a standard rehearsed narrative we tell in job interviews or at dinner
The
parties.
usual elevator pitch.
Right. But to change your identity, you have to reframe your history so it actively supports your future aspirations.
You are basically acting as the PR manager for your own past.
That's it exactly. You have to highlight the hidden threads in your past that point toward where you want to go while intentionally de-emphasizing the parts that tie you to your old identity.
But you're not lying, right?
No, you aren't lying. You're just curating a different exhibit in the museum of your life.
Oh, curating a different exhibit. I love that. And the third exercise is the sandbox approach.
Yes. This is the practical application of the low-risk experiments we discussed earlier.
Getting in the water.
Yes. You allocate specific protected time weekly, your sandbox, to play. This is time dedicated to volunteering, taking classes, or doing freelance gigs.
Places where you can try out new skills without the pressure of performance reviews.
Or the terror of financial dependence.
Let's walk through a highly specific, memorable example to see how all three of these exercises interact.
I'd love to.
Let's imagine a corporate defense lawyer. They've spent 10 years litigating, they make great money, but they are completely burned out and realize their real passion isn't the law, it's history.
Right.
They think they want to write historical nonfiction. According to Ibarra, they shouldn't just quit their firm, buy a cabin in the woods, and stare at a typewriter.
Definitely not. Because introspection and isolation will just lead to writer's block and panic about their mortgage.
So where do they start?
First, they need the sandbox approach. They keep their day job, but they dedicate their Saturday mornings to a low-risk experiment.
Like what?
Maybe they take a weekend course on archival research at a local university. Or they start writing a free weekly newsletter about obscure local history.
Just dipping their toes in.
Right. And they might do this and realize they actually hate the solitary nature of writing.
Which would be great.
Massively successful experiment, because it saved them from ruining their career over a fantasy.
But let's say the experiment goes well. They love the archives, they love the writing. The next step is shifting connections.
Right. They step out of the sandbox and into the real world. They start attending historical society meetups. They go to a writer's retreat.
Making those new contacts.
Yes. They start having coffee with published authors or literary agents. They are intentionally stepping out of the circles of corporate lawyers who just ask them about billable hours and stepping into circles that ask them about their research.
So they start seeing themselves reflected as a writer in the eyes of this new community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The fresh mirror.
And finally, they have to tackle that narrative development. When they go to that writer's retreat, they can't introduce themselves by saying, "Hi, I'm just a burned-out corporate lawyer pretending to be a historian."
Because that narrative keeps them anchored in the past.
So what do they say?
They rewrite their story. They say, for the last decade, I've specialized in digging through thousands of pages of dense, obscure case law to construct compelling, easy-to-understand narratives for juries.
Oh, that's good.
And then they pivot. Now, I'm taking that exact same investigative storytelling skill and applying it to historical archives for readers.
Oh, that is brilliant. They haven't lied about being a lawyer, but they've completely reframed that legal career as the ultimate training ground for becoming a nonfiction writer.
Yes.
They've crafted a cohesive story that makes total sense to their new network. It shifts you from being a passive victim of your resume to the active, deliberate author of your career.
It's an incredibly empowering shift, but we do need to acknowledge a very real tension here.
What's that?
The tension between taking these risks and maintaining stability. When we talk about career reinvention or identity play, it can sometimes sound like advice tailored exclusively for the highly privileged.
Like people who have a massive financial runway to just quit and go find themselves on a retreat in Bali.
Exactly.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because if you have a mortgage, 3 kids, and aging parents to support, hearing someone tell you to experiment with your identity can sound less like advice and more like a terrifying, out-of-touch luxury.
Right. And Ibarra is acutely aware of this dynamic. The ambiguity of how much risk is acceptable is deeply personal and subjective.
It depends on your life.
Completely. But this is exactly why her intense focus on micro-experiments is so vital. She is not advocating for reckless leaps of faith.
So it's about playing it safe, but still playing.
Yes. Her entire methodology is designed to honor your cultural and personal realities regarding stability.
You don't have to bet the farm.
No. You do not have to jeopardize your family's financial security or your health insurance to take a weekend coding class. You don't have to risk your mortgage to reach out to someone on LinkedIn for a 15-minute virtual coffee.
Or to rewrite your own narrative in your journal.
Exactly. The micro-experiment is the ultimate risk mitigation tool.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize all these actionable strategies, the sandbox, the narrative shifts, the new connections, what is the core defining takeaway for the listener today?
The defining takeaway is that your professional identity is not something you find hidden under a rock if you just stare at it long enough.
It's not a treasure hunt.
No. It is crafted. It's forged through action, through a relentless test and learn approach, and through a willingness to embrace the discomfort of that liminal hallway.
Being okay with not knowing for a bit.
Exactly. You have to be willing to be a beginner again, to hold multiple possibilities in your mind at once, and most importantly, to act before you have all the answers.
We started this deep dive talking about that visceral feeling of staring at a blank journal page on a Sunday morning, trying to introspect your way to a passion.
The trap.
The trap. The massive shift here is realizing that the journal isn't for discovering who you are. It's a logbook for documenting the experiments of who you are becoming while you are out there in the water.
It is the shift from being a philosopher of your own life to being a scientist of your own life.
Oh, I love that.
You don't just sit and ponder. You run the experiment, you gather the data, and you adapt based on the results.
I want to leave you with a final challenge to mull over this week, building on everything we've just unpacked.
Think about your current professional life, or even your personal projects.
Right. What is one outdated past role or label you are holding on to right now that is actively blocking you from your next evolution?
What's keeping you in the past?
And more importantly, what is one tiny, low-risk experiment, just 1 hour in the sandbox that you can run this week to test a new version of yourself?
It doesn't have to be a massive shift. It just has to be an action. Get out of your head and gather some real data.
Thank you so much for joining us to learn and grow today. We'll be signing off from this deep dive on Better Every Page on YouTube. We'll see you in the sandbox.